Hi, my name is Glen Gilmore, and for 8 years I had the privilege of serving as mayor of a community of about 90,000 people. Now I serve as an educator and also as a Microsoft brand ambassador. And today I'm very happy to welcome Ben Hammel, who is the Director of Strategy for Critical Infrastructure, Transportation, and Digital Identity at Microsoft. Welcome, Ben. Ben, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with Microsoft.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Glenn. And I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today. So, like you mentioned, I covered strategy here at Microsoft for the state and local governments for the U.S. Across the nation. And really, what I focus on is on the critical infrastructure. From critical infrastructure point of view, that's transportation, water utilities, public-owned utilities. And this is an important part of our infrastructure and how protected we are against cyber attacks and also from a digital transformation process, right? And so I work a lot with our customers across the U.S. to help them understand how technology paired with their traditional methods of managing the infrastructure can really bring them to the forefront, but also help them for the future in terms of preparing for different kinds of activities that could be faced with.
And Ben, the big phrase is smart city. Can you just give us a brief overview of what's meant by smart city, that phrase?
Yeah, I think it's a phrase that means different things to different folks. From my point of view, a smart city is a journey, right? It's a journey from transforming yourself as a city to a more connected city, which means that technology is playing a major role in the advancement. I think today what we understand is that cities hold lots and lots of data, but held in silos, they actually don't provide them with the opportunity to grow, to expand, to address the challenges that the residents of that city may need. And I also think it gives them an opportunity to look at ways for more efficiency, to provide a higher level of safety, but also to look at things like equity and resiliency for the future.
And your focus, one of your focuses is of course on transportation. And what can communities do to make their transportation, their mobility smarter and safer in this digital age?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and we work with different cities because, like I said, they're on different parts of the journey, right? And so, in many cities, they first
Hmm.
need to discover where we call it transportation deserts exist, right? Where do you not able to provide a level of public transportation to a segment of your residents? And when we look at those, we look at new creative ways to provide more equitable solutions, more opportunities for bringing technology to address. Folks need public transportation. They need it to get to their jobs. They need it to get to their events. They need to, in their everyday life, need to be able to rely on something that can get them to places on time and safely. So I think, from my point of view, transportation is one of the hearts of a city, really being able to pull together different parts, different economic backgrounds, as well as bring more businesses and more growth to the city.
I love the observation you make, Ben, about how smart city is actually a journey, and different communities are at different points in that journey. How would you recommend that cities begin that journey for those who really aren't there quite yet?
Yeah, I think there's in the world today lots of shiny objects, right? There are a lot of different ways of saying, "Wow, wouldn't this be great if I just do this little science project or build off of that?" And I think you really need to have a comprehensive plan to how technology affects your city, right? You need to really look at, where are the areas that will help you one, sustain your city, two, give an opportunity for growth, and then three, look at ways to do government services similar to how we expect our commercial services that we go on a regular basis. Folks really want to get online and do business and get their services through governments online versus in person, right? So how do we do that smarter and safer for our residents? We also want to look at ways that technology can help build efficiencies into, let's say, travel times, right? How do I get from point A to point B in a way that I feel comfortable, right? And today, transportation isn't just about getting on a bus or a subway, right? We're looking at, bikes and ride shares and different
Hmm.
methods,
Hmm.
right? Of micro mobility, right? And these are new ideas that the city needs to take into effect when they start planning their city, providing ideas around transportation. Also, sustainability is a big piece, right? Smart cities are looking to make sure that, one of the biggest impacts of any kind of environmental impact is the the gases or the carbon footprints that transportation drives in a city. It's the number one provider against sustainable cities. So thinking about technology, creating what's called green waves, never letting a big bus sit at a red light for too long. Because if that bus is sitting there, it's idling, it's burning gas, it's causing impacts on the environment. So how do we coordinate things like signal processing to let a bus, continue on its route, not to be sitting at red lights? That helps with one, sustainability, but two, operational efficiency. Because if that bus is not sitting at a red light, it's at its bus stop on time. If it's on its bus stop on time, then folks are more apt to get onto that bus and use public transportation to help with overall city growth.
I love that you weave in sustainability, which is when people think about smart cities. I don't know that they appreciate that data really has an important role in making cities more efficient and also cleaner and greener. The question I do have is, as we invite more people to share more data to these connected modes of transportation, what new risks are we also inviting, and how do we address those risks?
Yeah, there's an age-old conversation about decentralized versus centralization of data, right? And in a decentralized world, there's pros and cons about security and maintenance because instead of breaking into one system, I have to break into multiple systems. When we start to look at consolidation of the information of that data into one single repository, let's just say you bring it from on-prem, premise to the cloud, and when you bring it there, you have to think about what does the data look like? Where are those sources of data and how do we trust those, right? So that's number one. We look at data sources being, simple things like our computers or our phones, but, like I mentioned before, signal processing and things like that. You now have a connected, traffic signal in your world, right? You have, even in some cities, they connect all of the manhole covers with IoT sensors. So there's really intelligence within the city that are happening right now, and the collection of data sources needs to be secure and protected. But then where does that data go, right? And when it's in the cloud, you need to provide things like backups, restores. You need to be able to have cybersecurity around those. How do I protect who has access to that data? And there's a concept in cities today called zero trust. And this is a concept across the world, right? And zero trust really addresses who you only want to provide the minimum access for the person to get the job or the task they need done, right? Do not provide any more than that, because that opens up opportunities for mistakes to happen or doors to be opened that maybe a cyber attack might approach. So data is a big source of that. It's also about collaboration, right? So when you look at not necessarily sharing data, because that becomes a sensitive topic sometimes in cities, right? But being able to actually share in a way that you don't give up ownership, but you provide the business outcome that you want, right? And if a government service needs to be more efficient, they may need to lean on another agency's data to be able to do that rather than duplicate or create challenges around exposure of that data as well. So I think overall, it's about collaboration, data driving a lot of these decisions, and really looking at it from how's the best way to secure, not just in my data while it sits in a database, but in transit as well.
As we look at artificial intelligence as being one of the topics in which every city is looking at, how do we automate processes? And we have AI embedded cameras that are helping identify when an accident happens and whether or not to dispatch first responders to that accident. But what are some concerns that you would have from a cybersecurity perspective about embracing that artificial intelligence and that automation?
Yeah, I mean, we'll address one of the challenges we have right now in cities too, is that the level of ability to get talent and to be able to maintain talent, to be able to use technology is a big challenge, right? And so we do need to augment the lack of resources, right, with some level of automated technology, right? And you mentioned artificial intelligence and machine learning. That is huge opportunities within the city, right? How to actually use the data sources like video cameras on buses or garbage trucks or even police vehicles, right? About those feeds actually coming in and not just using them for incident management, but also for AI and ML around determining whether an incident happened, how to actually react to that. And when we look at data, you want to present that in a way that actually allows the folks you do have on staff to help make decisions that aren't automated, but also then to automate steps like dispensing a tow truck in the event that you need to remove a vehicle, automated while a police vehicle or fire vehicle is there to address, the actual accident itself, right? So how do we look at AI and ML to do some of those menial tasks, versus some of the more mission critical tasks that a human does need to get involved with. I think that's where some important pieces are. And I think when you look at collaboration and different ways to communicate, we don't communicate just picking up a phone and calling anymore, right? We do it through automated alerts and notifications. We do it through texts on our phones. We do it through, messages in Teams, right? So there's lots of ways that, even an AI ML model can just at least make people aware of a situation, through these methods and communicating through, more advanced communication kind of methods, right?
So an important point that you're bringing out is that the automation weaves into humans who are hopefully still part of that process and part of the decision making, but they're getting early warnings, early alerts that the AI is providing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And in video analytics, I mean, it's amazing today what we can do with object recognition, right? And being able to not only see what happened, but what may actually happen. So in a lot of cases, transportation accidents are what we focus on. But the follow-up accidents about folks not paying attention and rear-ending the folks while they're waiting, it's not paying attention, going into that incident space, like that's also a problem, right? So if we can get to it quicker, remove it quicker, we can then eliminate a lot of the congestion, which then would be those follow-on accidents, which lots of incidents and injuries might occur. So I think it's also quick to time, fix the issue, eliminate follow-on issues is also important.
Then we're all waiting for autonomous vehicles, and it sounds like they're coming and they're coming soon. Autonomous buses, autonomous trucks. What should smart cities be doing to prepare for that? And what are the cybersecurity risks that are realistic and not far-fetched that we need to be aware of?
Well, I think we're going to see them integrated into our lives, right? And so whether, like you said, it's an automated bus or it's an autonomous truck, it may even just be an autonomous pizza delivery, right? Where we're starting to see different drones driving on the sidewalks where we're walking, right? There's a lot of conversations too about the air and who owns the air in terms of drone management and deliveries through some of our popular delivery methods. So I don't think it's just autonomous vehicles. I think there's a whole influx of different kinds of involvement with autonomous types devices within our lives. But as it relates to autonomous buses and autonomous trucks, I think they're going to create some efficiencies, right? They're going to create some opportunities for us to be more advantageous around. A lot of these are electric, which means they're going to have a less sustainable or impact on the environment, right? They're going to be able to operate more efficiently because they're going to be sensors all around it to know when to go, when to stop. It'll address safety in some cases. They'll be able to know when folks are in the crosswalks and shouldn't turn, right? And it's not a human decision anymore, right? But I also think truck delivery can then be scheduled more efficiently. And so curb management within a city, right, which becomes an issue, which involves a safety, is when can I be on that curb and when can I not be on that curb, right? When is the best time to be there with least amount of impact? So I think autonomous vehicles will give us a connected environment, which will create some more efficiency, will have impacts on sustainability, but also increase our safety in the cities.
And the vulnerability aspect of it, Ben, things that cities should be doing in terms of best practices. You've mentioned zero trust. Are there other aspects that we should be looking at as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at a smart city, you're going to grow really fast, right? And you're going to have lots of projects. Really having a monitoring tool in place, right, to be able to say on a regular basis what's going on in my network, what's going on in terms of what I know is right and what I don't know is right. We're seeing lots and lots more of ransomware attacks on cities because if you think about just like a water utility within a city, right? They have everyone's address and everyone's payment and communication method. Like that's a ripe database to protect against, right? And so how do we look at our assets different in the city to be able to say, what do we need to protect and how do we prioritize protection of those? And when we look at what could happen, we got to look at business continuity. A business like a government is, relied on by so many residents. If we go turn on our water, our power, and it doesn't work, if we go to try to get on the roads and they're just not, efficient for me to drive on, like that's a big part of our lives. And so a government really needs to think about security at its core, to think about where those engineering documents are, where the structures are, and what's even being done from a construction point of view and how that's impactful to their residents. So, I think cyber is a major issue, but, it's a business continuity, it's a backup restore, it's a anti-ransomware approach. And like you mentioned, again, the zero trust, making sure the right people have access to the right data.
And Ben, if you're a mayor of a city, what would you be doing in terms of some basic steps to prevent that ransomware attack or to be ready to respond to that ransomware attack?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd have a plan. I'd make it aware with all my my reports that there's actually this is a risk, and we need to have a plan, right? What are we doing if this was to happen today, and it starts to expose a lot of your vulnerabilities? So each of those vulnerabilities need to be prioritized and implemented. I also would recommend that a test be done, right? Let's just simulate that a cyber
Hmm.
attack has happened, that ransomware has done. How are we going to react? How are we going to pull together the right business leadership, the right IT folks, and then how do we even partner with technology companies like Microsoft in these situations? We at Microsoft do have a reaction and a support for all of our customers, right? In the event that this happened, and to be honest with you, it will happen, right? We already have lots and lots of cases of this happening. It's just when would it happen to you, so you can be prepared. So I would say first and foremost, have a plan, know your vulnerabilities, prioritize fixing those vulnerabilities, and then, like I said, also execute against some tests on a regular basis just to see how well you react in those situations.
Ben, any additional best practices that you would recommend for cities and states to protect their critical infrastructure?
Yeah, I think it's
I
about
mean,
partnership. Oh, yeah, I think it's about partnership with the companies you're working with, right? So in the world of a city, you have architectural, engineering, construction firms. Those are the folks that are designing and building your city alongside of you. You give them large contracts to help you think differently, how to think long term, right? So lean on those. Once they're in the design and build phase, you move those into what's called operate and maintain. Don't forget about the investments you did, the designs you did, and why you made those decisions you made to build this part of the city versus that part of the city. Continue to evaluate your data. Think about how your city is growing. Are folks building more residential areas and moving into certain areas? Do you have enough infrastructure there to provide the services you need to them? And then look at the retail and the commercial space. Where is that growing? Where are the businesses moving in? And where is that drawing parts of your city? Sometimes cities forget about that. And the planning part about it is really a challenge, right? To think about how the decisions we made 10 years ago are affecting us today and how the decisions we're making today will affect us in 10 years. So I think it's really about partnerships with companies that impact your city. I also think it's partnerships with technology companies. How do you lean in and ask questions to companies like us at Microsoft on how we can help? How can we provide platforms and opportunities for you to grow as a city and to make yourself so you're extensible and can the impact of the growth of your city can actually be done in a way that's planned and provides the same level of services.
So I really don't know the answer to the question. Does a Microsoft come in and do an audit if it's asked to do an audit of a city or state government entity? Will they come in and kind of as a precautionary, proactive measure? Is that something that's done?
Yeah. A couple different things can happen, right? So partnerships with Microsoft, you have access to tools, right? So most of our cities and towns and counties and states in the U.S. have an enterprise agreement with it, has access to the tools. That's not far enough or good enough, right? They need to lean on us for how to use those tools effectively. In the event that we use those tools, we will provide, monitoring, we will provide assessments and audits of their system and give them back reports. Those reports will show them the vulnerabilities, right? And then we can work with them to figure out how best to address those vulnerabilities. We have a vast partnership with lots of companies as well, different services companies, different technology companies that augment what we do to help push cities as well. So it's a great partnership that we invite cities to come and actually talk to your Microsoft representative and learn more about Microsoft's investment into your industry as a smart city and what we can do to help you on your journey to become stronger, safer, more sustainable, and resilient.
Ben, thank you so much for helping us understand how to make smart cities smarter, safer, and more sustainable. Thank you.